In Luke chapter 2, it talks about Mary and Joseph bringing Jesus to the temple. And in Luke 2:22, it says, "When the days for their purification according to the law of Moses were completed, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every firstborn male that opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord." What about men like Jacob that had multiple wives? Were there multiple firstborns within the family and then just one that was born chronologically first that was called the firstborn? How'd that work?
Phil the thinker. Just a very short answer, not a 45-minute one, is, for example, Abraham had, 6 wives. His second wife was the Hagar, but there were 4 more after that. Ishmael was his firstborn, but Isaac was the son of promise. And so there appears to be, even in multiple wives, Jacob, 2 wives, 2 concubines, 4 wives, net effect. Yet Reuben was always called the firstborn. And so it appears it wasn't by whether it was favorite or unfavorite, concubine or whatever. It appears in the lists of the order of children that the firstborn was the firstborn chronologically until they died. Now, what's interesting with David, his firstborn and secondborn, if you look at the list, David lost a lot of his kids. It must have been they died as children or at birth. But what's also interesting is it's not always the firstborn that wins. If you look at Cain and Abel, which one was the one that God picked? Abel. And then if you look at Esau and Jacob, Esau was firstborn, but God picked the second. And if you look all the way down, even Solomon, there were about 10 or 8 before him, and then Solomon, but the Lord picked Solomon. So even though, according to the rights of inheritance, the firstborn appears to be the chronological one. But I've never heard that question before in my whole life, so that's amazing. Why?
Did they have to bring the firstborn even of each wife, though, and redeem them
at the temple? If they were observant, yes, they would have. So I would assume that Joseph and Mary would have brought James, their firstborn, because James was their firstborn to the Lord. But Christ was brought to fulfill all righteousness. There was no other reason that they brought Christ. He didn't need it. He just did it to obey. But it appears, because if you think about it, Peninnah and Hannah were both wives of Elkanah, Samuel's parents. But it was Samuel who was not the firstborn. Remember, she had all the kids, Peninnah. And Samuel was brought by Hannah and brought, she didn't just bring an offering, she brought him and consecrated him to the Lord. So it appears that the firstborn of each wife in Samuel's case, but I've